days, that is just a week. That is to end with this month. But the question is, how are these days running? Because if you really, when the months enter, that is definitely the end of the year, and the remaining months, I don't know why, tend to run so fast. But that is where I want now to take this opportunity to welcome you on board in a special way from wherever you're watching us from. I want to say thank you and welcome aboard. And we are going to be doing this with you up to the hour of 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, that's when I will be saying I'm out, leaving the studios for the next crew to come through. That is of the Airways team. But we'll be here to also give you what's happening in the world of news. That is for the Lubara speakers. And thereafter, we shall be having what we call the Northern Request Hour, which is a program that entirely plays music from Northern Uganda. For you who loves Northern Uganda at heart, definitely that is the program which you must make and not miss. And you must always be hooked up onto, and they will be, of course, playing for you music from Lango sub-region, West Nile sub-region. When I talk about West Nile, definitely it is actually a region that is of mixed ethnic backgrounds, where you find the Lurus, the Madis, the Kebus, they're all here. The Lubaras also are here. The Kakwas, really it's quite huge, where we have so many people of different backgrounds, but of the same region and the same race. And that is why we are there promoting the Northern Request Hour. Definitely it is for you who is also really watching us and who is proud of being a Northerner. Many of the times, some people call Northerners, they do not feel proud to be associated of being in North. That is not for you, but you who loves being who you are, who is proud of the heritage, definitely you will be watching this from the parts of Nyoro, in Buganda, in Acholi, in Lango, in West Nile, in Teso, in Karamoja, in all the parts across the country and across borders. That is where entirely you will be having that opportunity. Remember, it's a program also that's a bit open, where you can be able to call and make that request. That's why it's called the Northern Request Hour. And they also do have provisions for sending greetings, where you can check on your loved ones, most especially those who may be outside and within West Nile sub-region. Definitely you should be having that advantage of also really checking on them. And thereafter we shall be having the Lebangia, that is with Fancy, and thereafter the street talk with the man who speaks in capital letters, that is MC Sarge, who will be coming through later on in there. That will be taking us up to 2, and after 2, that's when we shall be having, that is the whistle time with Owen Ezaga. And I remember last night was actually one of those interesting nights. Real Madrid was able to surprise many. Arsenal as well did go to beat, and I will be letting you know maybe some of those results and which teams that these teams also did go on to beat in there. And all in all, that will be coming through in the evening of the show, and more details of that will be, of course, coming through on the whistle time. That will be starting from 2 to 3 p.m. Then from 3 to 5, we shall be having the movie time. That is for the movie lovers who love following cinemas. Then definitely that is a program which you shouldn't miss, because they will bring you nice movies also really that you will be enjoying. And that is after where we shall be seeing the movie time taking us through to Chukuchuku, which is from 5 to 7 p.m. as the team will be here playing for you music. And really, it being Wednesday, trust me, it is actually where we usually talk of Women Crush Wednesdays. Definitely they will be doing that and playing those songs that you feel you need to also listen to, and that will be taking us from 5 to 7. And then from 7 to 8, we shall be having the Nilecast News Bulletin with the beautiful princess, that's KOKOLIRIKO Christine, and she will be here. That is already taking us through with the Nilecast News Bulletin. And thereafter, to summarize the day, we shall be having the last program of the day. That is Kelele, where you will be also catered for in all the languages. And really, I don't know this lady how she does it, but she speaks, I don't know how many languages in Uganda. She almost speaks all the languages in the country. And I was able to hear her speak Luganda. That time I heard her speak Aluru. The other time it was Acholi. That time it was Madi. This time round I hear her speaking Lubara. I don't know how many languages she speaks, but she is one person who is gifted with so many languages. And that is actually how our programs for the day will be going on. But all in all, allow me start off your day from an informed point of view. That is with the KOKOLIRIKO live show, and this is where we give you morning updates of what is happening in the papers in the entire country, so that you do not also really be left out in there. Because if at all you're left out, trust me, you wouldn't be knowing what is happening in the country, and that is also really going to be to a disadvantage. And that therefore calls for you to be informed and to have informed decisions. It is actually here that you will be knowing what is happening in the entire country. And this is where I want to welcome you on board in a special way from us in Arua City, that's at Anyafio. I want to say it is actually a bright morning where the sun is already up and the cock crow did go on a few minutes and a few hours ago. That means it is actually a new day. For you who is still on bed, definitely you've got to wake up and go start hustling, because if at all you're going to be keeping on that bed, then there's no way you are going to be changing things, because for you to make sure that you change and also improve on your livelihood, it calls for hard work. And that is why we are saying you have to wake up and now go start hustling to also make sure that ends meet at the end of the day, because if you're told you're not working hard, trust me, the airtime that you will be needing will not be in position. And for those who have families, I don't know how you will be paying the school fees, buying food for the wives and the family. It will really be a hectic time in there. And that is why we are saying we must therefore leave the bed and go start hustling, because we are just 10 minutes. That is the second hour, which is only at 8 o'clock. And we are saying you have to wake up and go start hustling to make ends meet in there. And that is why we need to also now begin the discussions with what's happening right above all. And this is where we did see Arua City Central Division yesterday awarding the best schools, that is in the PLE mock results release. We did see the schools being awarded, and the schools that had the best performances were actually acknowledged, which is really quite good, because if you look at the PLE, we are just counting down weeks, and I should say about 1 week and some few days. That's where we shall be seeing our learners who are currently in the last phase of preparations doing the examinations in there. But we did see Central Division, after Arua City recently handed over them their results. Yesterday, we also had an opportunity where they were able to actually hand over these results to now their schools, that is in different divisions, also in the different parts of the division, which came with acknowledgement. And we also did see this, the function also really, as well as also really acting as a handover of the trophies. The schools who won the trophies were able to now hand over these trophies to now the division. I do also understand the town clerk, that is Dr. Malik, was able to also really say their plans of the division also to develop a sports center, where they will be keeping also all these facilities within all these trophies within the facility at the division, which will also really act as a tourism site in there. Because if you look at sports, today many people do not look at sports as just for leisure. It is actually business. Today we have colleagues who are into sports business, and they're earning a lot of money for themselves. As footballers, as agents, as coaches, they're really doing a tremendous job. And that means if sports is well-natured, which we did see yesterday, where 2 girls are being selected from the city, and these are girls from the Central Division, one from Brightview Nursery and Primary School, and another from Arua Secondary School, who are currently being nurtured. And in the first week of December, they will be traveling to Kapchorwa for also what we call trainings. After the final examination, thereafter, they will be heading to also Nambole for their final also the trial matches in there. This is for Nash to represent the country, and we wish them the very best, because if at all we do not also really nurture this talent early enough, it will be very difficult for us to have the next Dokas Njikurus, and we shall be finding it very difficult to find the next Sheila Lenis. So all in all, it is quite important for us to nurture this talent when it is still early and in the early stages, which we are seeing now the city also really working towards. And we did see also the deputy town clerk, or the town clerk, who also was present, also did also acknowledge that they will be doing whatever it takes to support these girls, so that also really our names appear again on the map. Because if you look at West Nile, we were at one time known as a sports hub, where talented players could come from, right from athletics, football, and other sporting activities. But today this has gone down. Many of our children are not also engaging in sports. That means as parents, we have the duty and an obligation of making sure that our children actually get to love sports. Because if they do not love sports, it's going to be quite difficult. It's going to be really indeed difficult for us to also see our girls and our boys shine at international activities, or else even just representing the country at international level will just be history, and we shall be struggling very much hard to also see a revival of careers in our city. So I think it's quite good for us to do that at this time and to restore this hope that is where we are seeing also today. Now the Central Division is actually selecting 2 girls who have been selected also to participate for national trials, and wish them the very best. And once they win, we shall be all happy. And today, Dr. Njikuru has made us very proud. When you talk about the name Njikuru, definitely you know what she did to this region and what she did for this nation. And that is why we continue to honor her, and we shall always continue to give her flowers. This is to inspire the other children to also really step into our shoes. And we are still winning also those other national players who are still struggling to also really shine just like in Njikuru. We are wishing them the very best. And when we talk about this, we have quite many names today who are also really representing the country. Recently, we had others representing at Olympics. We have also had on very many occasions already representing us at some of these national tournaments, university games, and many others. This is all to also really make sure that this talent in the region is actually promoted. Under corporate responsibility, when the record at one time also had the Record Run, which all aims at promoting talent in this region, and that is why we will always continue to acknowledge such individuals and such also the entities that are doing their very best to also motivate others and also to help identify and nurture these talents, because that is all what we need. We need to also see these girls, also these boys, also getting something small for themselves at the end of the day, because classroom may fail. We have seen this happening. It is not a dream, it is not a myth, but we have seen it happen. Today, when we talk about some rich people, they are actual sportsmen. Looking at names like Cristiano Ronaldo, looking at names like Lionel Messi, these are poor earning huge sums of money, and these are just from the legs. So I think it is quite good for us to nurture this talent early enough so that we also develop the talent of these young girls in there. But more details that will be coming through when I will be also giving us hints on what's happening in the world of sports. But first, now let's see what's happening in the world of also the other news. More stakeholders are advocating for increment on funds that's for refugees, and this is Western Sub-region is actually one of those areas privileged to be hosting these refugees, and that is why it is actually quite good. And now Uganda is demanding for more support, that is to host refugees in there. And when you talk about Uganda, it's actually one of those areas today that is hosting a number of refugees, and that is where we feel people should be able to really understand that indeed Uganda is doing a tremendous job. And now the Ugandan government has presented a set of demands that is to the international community, including funding agencies, in response to the increasing burden of hosting refugees. And Uganda currently hosts, that is about 1.7 million refugees, straining the country's resources as donors' funding declines. And that is why today when you talk about funding from the donors, which has really gone down, the impact is on the government. It means these people should use our resources because we use the same resources with them. They go to the same schools that we go to. They visit the health facilities, the same health facilities that we go to. They still also really use the same roads. So I think it is quite important for us to also really make this demand so that the international community also supports us. Uganda's Minister for Relief of Disaster Management, that is Mr. Hilary Onek, also said Uganda is shouldering also more of the refugee burden that it should, and that also calls for also resulting the country to loans also which is also to finance the refugee hosts in there. And he emphasized that the refugee crisis is a global issue and should not rest solely on host communities and host countries as well. And today when you talk about host communities, Uganda actually is having a number of host refugee districts, both in Western and Western Sub-region. We are having refugee also really districts, and in Western Uganda, we have districts like Chikube, which are also really hosting the refugees. In Western Sub-region, Terego, Madio, Kolo, Kawoko are having a number of refugees, and that is where we feel this shouldn't also really go unnoticed. And if you talk about Arua City, we are actually having a number of what we call urban refugees, those who have moved away from the camps and they are now residing in the towns. And that is why it is actually very, very much good for us to be seeing this happening. And that is where we feel Uganda indeed deserves to have an increment that is in budget for hosting these refugees at the end of the day. That is what we feel should be able to work. And we feel this is actually quite possible. And Mr. Hilary Onek also really called for support in mitigating environmental impact such as deforestation caused by the long-term land use by the refugees. Today, yes, indeed, most of the refugees have also cut down the trees and the host communities as well have contributed to cutting down the trees to support the activities of the refugees, and that is why Mr. Hilary Onek also emphasized the need that is for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the UNHCR, to also really, and other partners to work together to provide durable solutions, that is including voluntary repatriations. And today, many of the refugees are wanting to go home. We have seen this on several occasions where we have interacted with them. They feel peace must be advocated way back in their countries so that they can be able to go back, and that means repatriations is actually quite good, and this is where we also really want to see these voluntary repatriations to also really help the country reduce on its burden of shouldering these refugees, and that is where we are going to be pausing with that discussion for now, and in our second hour we shall be seeing more of that discussion and many of those other interesting programs. But what do you think government should do to also really see that they work with this issue of the refugees without necessarily holding a lot of burden? We take a short commercial break. This is still a KOKOLIRIKO live show on West Nile TV channel 477 and on 0073 on Zuku. And the good news is we are actually having a new baby also coming up on board. I'll be letting you know which other platform we are moving towards. And this is where we also are aiming to actually make sure that you are catered for in all other platforms. And as we continue to work to also make sure that we are all on all these platforms where you should be watching us from the comfort of your choice in there. For now, we take a short commercial break. When we bounce back, I will be letting you know what is happening still in the country and across borders. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium, Channel 259 and Channel 246. Starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and limited passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back from the short commercial break. We are 6 minutes after 8 o'clock. And in case you're just joining us right now, welcome aboard. I want to take this opportunity to say welcome. And we are going to be doing this together with you up to 9 o'clock. And this is where I will be in position to sort of let you know what is making rounds in the entire country and across borders. It's actually quite good for you to be knowing what is happening in all aspects. And that is where we touch on issues of socio-economic transformation. We touch some laser, that's in sports. We also talk about movies, and all that is actually to make sure that you are entertained and you're not left out in any kind of maybe information. And that is where we now want to take this opportunity to welcome on board from the first hour in there, as we are now into our second hour. Earlier on, we were talking about Uganda calling for more funding, that is for refugee hosts in India. And this also comes at a time where the burden has been entirely left on the country, that is to make sure the issues of dealing with the refugees is concerned in there, which is really a big task. Because imagine all these people using your resources without any funding. And where does this burden go to? This burden actually is now transferred onto you, the citizen, because you have to also make sure you pay your taxes. And this taxes also is in turn utilized to actually make sure that some of these issues when it comes to giving back such services is actually also catered for in there. And that is where it becomes a huge task if not well dealt with in there. Now representing Prime Minister Robin Nabanja, the third Deputy Prime Minister Ms. Rukia Isanga Nakadama, noted that Uganda is home to 1.7 million refugees, and the largest population in Africa is actually hosted in here. And also admitted the worsening situation towards climate change. We are also talking about other factors which have also as well forced many people into exile. And some of these people are in exile in Uganda, and that therefore means we cannot send them away because these are our brothers and sisters. Today when we talk about refugees, many people don't want to call them to be called refugees. These are actually our brothers and sisters from the neighboring countries, and that is why we must work hand in hand with them. And I feel it's quite important for us to be also talking about this as we go on with the morning show. Ms. Nakadama emphasized the need for enhanced collaboration with UNHCR to advance voluntary and dignitary returns for refugees while securing multi-year funding. And that is where we did see Mr. Filippo Grandi, the UNHCR for refugees, praised Uganda's progressive refugee policy, which allows refugees also to cultivate land and engage in income-generating activities. Yes, it's quite good. Today you move to Afua, you find the refugees are quite well interacting with the locals. We have farmlands that belong to the refugees. You move to Afua still, and this is where I was recently, and you find that the refugees are actually in income-generating activities. In the markets, you find the women refugees who move from all these markets. There's one whom I also interacted with, moves from Afua to Kubala to buy the foodstuffs and also takes back to also sell. That is, the also comes in there. And she is earning a lot of money. She's doing well, and that is also not only in there. Recently, I was in one of those camps. There, I was able to see refugees doing business, and these are the small-scale business that also, at the end of the day, earn something small for them. And that means we need to continue supporting them in there, and that would also really make sure that this, at the end of the day, yields something in there. And this is one area, because being a refugee is not by choice. Many of the times, these people are being forced into exile. And remember, while growing up, one of those stories and the miseries that my late grandmother used to tell me was about life in refuge in DRC at one time, and then in South Sudan, because Uganda is also the most, especially those from Western sub-region, we at one time forced into exile in these neighboring countries. And that is why the issues of hosting refugees and the issues of giving them a hospitable environment by West Nilers actually traces way back to the history that we also had with them in there. And that means we need to also now give them that hospitable environment, of course, which I believe we are doing. And that is to make sure that when they go back, they will still appreciate and acknowledge just the way we are doing it now. And I hope the environment that was created way back was actually good, not maybe how it is also in Uganda. But we hope at the end of the day, these people will go back. But the individual, or what we call voluntary repatriation is actually what we should be advocating for now, because if you look at all this, many people also still will be also not understanding what it is all about, and that is where at the end of the day many people also will not be able to want to go back. But we're saying it is actually quite good for them to also go back because of the challenges that they may be going through in Uganda, and all that is actually where we feel is quite important. And we hope at the end of the day, when the right time comes, definitely we'll be going back, and that would also make sure that they get the necessary help that they deserve to get from this country in there, and that is where we feel it is actually quite good. And now looking at some of the stories, remember as it is actually a school period, many of the learners are actually getting set for the final examinations. And if you look at the P7s, they're actually counting down a week and some few days. Meanwhile, for the senior fours, the last ones also they should be getting ready for the final examinations. As for those who are in the other sets, they may be getting done, because I was privileged to also sit my examinations in just 2 weeks, and I was done. That means this week we shall be seeing some possibly finalizing with the examinations, but also for the learners in higher institutions of learning, we are now seeing graduation ceremonies becoming graduation ceremonies. And among the universities that is graduating this also these coming days is Uganda Christian University, that did unveil their new gowns. That is ahead of the graduation ceremony, where they also did go on to warn parents and the students against indecent dressing. And when you look at indecent dressing, sometimes some parents already are the ones promoting this. But we're now seeing the university sort of coming up to also really caution, that is the parents, against what we call indecent dressing at the university's graduation. This also comes at a time where the university did also unveil new gowns that is to replace the old black ones ahead of its 25th graduation ceremony slated to take place this month. That is on the 25th in there. Now at least 1,000 students are said to be also graduating with bachelor's, diplomas, and also masters and PhDs in different disciplines also in this year's graduation ceremony in there. That's why we did see Dr. John Chitaimbwa, the Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs at the university, say the gown are being under also really mined in the countries at different institutions, including nursery schools in there. But really many people have often talked about this issue of nursery learners graduating. I think it's quite good because this motivates learners. I wasn't also really able to graduate also at nursery level because we didn't have a chance to put these gowns on. But I was motivated because I was able to see my followers putting on these things, and I had to work hard to also achieve this at the university level. So I think this issue of people saying it undermines, I don't buy the idea, but rather I think it is actually promoting many learners to work hard. And according to him, graduation gown is one of the most abused instruments of education in Uganda, and the university wants the ministry to take action. But I think, in my own opinion, this is my own opinion as Farish Majid now, I think it is actually a motivational factor. One learner who graduates with also these gowns at nursery level will want to work hard and still achieve the same at the university. I was able to see scenarios where learners had the opportunities of graduating with these gowns at nursery level, mixing the photos with the ones of university. It means they were actually motivated, and that motivates the rest to work hard to also do the same. And that is where I feel it is actually a wrong idea to say that this undermines also really the universities, also really opportunities also in there. Now, Dr. Chitaimbwa also asked the Ministry of Education and Sports to regulate the use of gowns at higher institutions of learning, also noting that it cannot afford to differentiate between a student who has completed also a 3-month, also completed university from one who has also received a 3-month certificate, since they all put on the same gown. Now, according to him, gowns are losing meaning for institutions without disciplines to compare themselves with students who have completed 4 years in the universities, and that is where we feel it is actually not right to also say that. And he says that from this Friday's graduation ceremony, UCU also will move to award from black to blue, and the gown also has 2 dominant colors, that is blue, which is the institution's also the color, and green for the faculties also in there. And Dr. Chitaimbwa advised parents who will turn also for the graduation ceremony to dress decently, noting that those who will not go by the university's dress code, which is a requirement of this maybe decent dress code, they will be barred from attending this graduation ceremony either. Now the university's guild president Agira Birungi lauded the administration for the new gowns. But this gowns really has generated a lot of discussions. on social media, where some people are also supporting it, while others are criticizing it, and others are saying it resembles also the gowns for one of the universities. Is it true? And that is where we feel you too also still can share your ideas and share your opinions on that discussion in there, and I will be going through it later on, and I will be also letting you know what exactly that means, and we shall be seeing that also really working towards in the next hour in there. And as we get to continue with the show, remember so many issues going to happen. That's where we're seeing now the alumni of Busoga sub-region are boosting efforts to revamp also the schools in the sub-region, and that is where we are now seeing the OBs and OGs are working towards restoration of the glories in their schools. In most times we have seen this happening, but sometimes it's absurd that the OBs also sometimes tend to neglect their schools. I'm one of the schools in Western Sub-region where we are seeing the OBs doing a tremendous job that is support the school in different activities. And what message is this sending to the rest of the school's alumni? It means that we need to also really see efforts by the government also supported by our own, where we can be able to sort of do some of those development. First of all, putting up infrastructure, then buying books, buying equipment, for instance, computers and those that can be used in the laboratories. And that would also definitely, at the end of the day, make sure that the learners work hard. And now coupled by the delays by government to renovate traditional secondary schools in Busoga sub-region, that also has prompted their respective alumni to intervene, and this is only where we have learned that, where some of the traditional schools in the sub-region include Mujibai Madvani College, Wairaka also really College, and we also talk about Busoga College Mwiri, and Wanyange Girls Iganga Secondary Schools, that was established, that is in the 1950s, Jinja College in 1946, and Jinja Secondary School that was established in 1948. And when we talk about Mujibai College, these are actually traditional schools, and Wairaka was established in 1953, and today we have so many OBs, both in the entire country, also those who are also abroad, and we expect them to extend a hand. Today when we talk about OBs of these schools, many of them are actually doing well. We have OBs in the ministries, and this is not only the OBs of Busoga sub-region. What about us in Western sub-region? What are we learning from OBs of Busoga? I think we need to wake up from that sleep and also go back and support our traditional schools. Then we have also traditional schools that are doing well recently, the ones of Nyapea. I did see them also making strides of supporting the school also to boost its academic also performance, which is really quite good, because we need to see these schools wake up from those dreams maybe where they have been sleeping. We need to also support them to wake up and compete at the national levels in there. The one of St. John's College, I see them doing tremendously, and we also expect the rest of the traditional schools to come up and still support their schools that are really going through a lot. This time by also really making sure that they develop from where they are to also really to a level that is a bit also really well in there, and that is where we did see that also happening. And when we talk about the schools and the boost of high-profile alumni, including that former President Apollo Milton Obote, former Prime Minister Dr. Ruhakana Rugunda, the Chabazinga William Nadiope of Busoga College, and Justice Affairs Minister Norbert Mau, who did also go to, that is Wairaka, that is also where we did see him also moving on in there. And other prominent OBs from the Busoga sub-region, and Nabagereka, the Queen of Buganda, Sylvia Najenda, and the Inspector General of Government, that's Betty Olive Kamia, who did go on to also study from Wanyange Girls, and First Deputy Prime Minister, that is also who did also go to that Namasagali College, that is that's Rebecca Alitola Kadaga, and many others who have also been to these schools, and that is where today we are expecting them also to go back and extend their hands to these schools. However, most of the schools have endured dilapidated buildings, doing the academic also performances, among other challenges, prompting their alumni now to come and also really do efforts to also really make sure that these are also really addressed in one way or the other. And this comes at a time where government funding is down, and it's going to do really very much. And we have seen the performances of schools in Eastern, most especially where Busoga sub-region is, and those in West and Northern Uganda going down. Therefore, I think it's quite important to also really support these schools in this period. Now in 2022, the State Minister for Finance, David Bahati, said plans that we are underway to renovate all traditional schools across the country over the next also really 5-10 years, but in a phased manner. That means we are going to be seeing renovations going one at a time. However, in March 2024, the Ministry of Education and Sports spokesperson, that is Dennis Murimba, said the government also really was financially constrained, and the number of schools also really to be renovated would be guided by available resources. And that means with the uncertainty that is looming, some alumni have now resorted also through their associations within the sub-region also really to also play a pivotal role in revamping their schools as the way for government also intervention is being weighted. And that means Muri College Old Boys Association, that's MOBA, the spokesperson of the association in there, Mr. Henry Rodney Mugisha, said all students already played a crucial role, that is in the revival of both primary and the college schools. And that is actually where we also need to talk about, because many times people also really tend to extend a support to the secondary schools, neglecting the primary schools. Still, I want to say the support must be given to both. And today in West Nile region, and really Ikubo Noel is doing a tremendous job. That is also really for the Ombachi Obis in terms of bringing them together. But we are also really expecting the rest of the schools, both primary and secondary schools, to learn from some of these schools in Busoga sub-region and those that are actually doing well. And recently I was able to also really see schools, St. John's College of Ombachi, Nyapea, St. Aloysius. We have seen them doing a tremendous job in terms of reviving the glory of the schools. What about others? What are we doing? How can we see that we support also really some of the initiatives that are being put in place? So I think it's quite good for us to be advocating for those. At the end of the day, we shall be seeing performances improving, because all in all, we want to see the performances of our learners improving. And that is why we are making strides to make sure that performances at the end of the day is improved. We want to see our schools also really compete at the top levels. And these behaviors where results are released, where we tend to look for our schools from bottom or in the middle, should stop. We want to check our schools from the top. And that is where it is important for us to also support efforts of the government by also really adding through what we have and what also God has given us. And that is really where at the end of the day, the schools are going to be seeing and realizing improvement performances, which will be quite well in there. And we hope with that, we shall be seeing also really development in there. Today we have seen several initiatives where also the OBs have also really secured loans. That is also through African Development Bank, which also really has helped in renovation and extension of a number of these schools in there. When you talk about these projects, today we have seen many of them also really are being supported also through the government programs. And that is where we expect these facilities now to be utilized very well, and that would, at the end of the day, improve on the performances of the schools. And we shall be therefore seeing efforts to make sure that the performances in these regions are realized. And that is where we feel we should be leaving the discussion aside and still looking at some of the stories. 3 pregnant P7 candidates in Kayunga district are causing concern. And today when we talk about pregnant P7 girl, in P7 we don't expect to be pregnant. That is where you expect me to be a child. But today, due to engagement in the early sex, we are seeing a number of our girls getting pregnant. How can we address this? As parents, what can we do to make sure that our children do not get pregnant? This morning I was listening to radio, and really it's quite absurd that in one of the regions within West Nile, there was an old grandfather, who is also really quite sad. When I heard the story, it's really quite embarrassing. Also really sleeping with the grandchildren, and at the end of the day, which I feel is really very bad. And that therefore means we must also really avoid some of these activities. We must desist from these practices. What has gone down to our societies? What is eroding our society? And how can we talk about, and how can we address this degeneration in morals and culture? Because as a grandfather, this is your child. We do not expect you to also really have feelings for your child. Because one of the one of the daughters was 11 years old, the other was 12 years. Really, it's quite absurd, it's quite embarrassing. It means society has really gone down, and therefore we need to do something. And this goes back to the clergy, it goes back to the political and all leaders to make sure that these matters actually not go on in our society in there. Because when you look at these issues, it's really a difficult task, which we must also really be able to solely address in there. Because if you not address this, it will really be a huge concern in there. Now that's where we feel all these matters should be also really be addressed in there. Because when you talk about incest, it's actually one of those issues that we need to also really talk about. Because as a grandfather, this is your relative, this is your child. we not expect you to also really see this happening. And this is actually one of those areas which I feel is happening as in Kayunga. 3 P7 girls are pregnant and also really raising costs. Now the teachers, however, said that in also the other 2 cases, the suspects are still on the run, and how can we arrest these suspects and bring them to book. And it's also the school who preferred anonymity in order to speak freely, told us journalists that one of the victims already was impregnated by her mother's bar patron. That means you must also really be serious of those people you bring, first of all, to work in your facilities, and then secondly, those relatives you bring home. You must also really be able to also really see how you deal with them, because many of them, as you go for work, you don't know what they're doing at home. We have scenarios where border riders we send home. Recently I was in Kampala. It actually happened. One of the border who was being used by the family to also really transport things home impregnated the daughter, impregnated the girls in there, and really it was quite absurd and unbelievable that somebody who was trusted, it means that people take trust for granted. If people trust you, how do you pay back is what matters. How do you really pay back for all this? Because if somebody trusts you, also really leaves you free to interact with their family members, and at the end of the day, you become a perpetrator, you become a violator of these people's rights, then it is really quite absurd and quite embarrassing at the same time. So I think it's really quite good for us to be advocating for these issues, and people must therefore desist from these practices. And it's upon also these girls to learn that indeed not every person is to be, they need to learn from that. We need to also talk about these issues at all times, and we must discourage all these practices, because at the end of the day we have seen the girls getting pregnant and the men run away. How can we deal with these issues is really what matters, and at the end of the day we want to see this happen. Because we'll be talking about this happening in Kayunga, not knowing a same scenario is happening in a rural district, a same scenario is taking place in Obongi, it's happening in Madiokolo, it's happening in Maracha, it's happening in Terego, it's happening in Zombo, it's happening in Pakwach, it's happening in Nebi, it's happening in Obongi, it's happening in Ajumani, it's happening in Moyo, and the entire Western side. So how do we deal with all these issues is really what matters. So I think today, where our girls are a bit exposed, as parents, my appeal would be that let's go back to our family roots. Let's have time with these girls, and that is also to educate them about sex. And the parents must therefore also have the time, most especially the mothers, should have time with their girls and tell them about the dangers of early sex in there, because if you're in P7 and you're pregnant, concentration definitely is going to be going down, because I've seen pregnant women suffering. Most of the times you see them sleeping, most of the times they want this and that, they are disturbing their husbands, they want to eat this, they don't want to eat this and that. It's a quite huge task. So I think it's also in one way or the other going to be affecting their performances. So to avoid all that, let's tell them about the dangers of early sex. While growing up, one of those issues that we used to be told very many times is that you will do these things at the university. You will do this. So it is patience. And that means as parents of these learners who are still in primary, let's talk to them. Let's have one-on-one time with them so that they can be able to understand what we go through. And today the girl child is actually most vulnerable because of some of the huge demands that they want. A girl wants to see a cloth on friend and wants the same type. And they want the same type. Tomorrow sees a shoe a friend bought, wants the same type. Where does money come from? And yet as parents, we may not be in position to also provide this. And where does this land them to? It lands them in trouble. And that is where we feel it is actually high time that we have one-on-one times with our girls and educate them. And that's so that they can be diseased from before becoming prey and falling victims to some of these activities in there. And that is where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside. And we are going to be taking yet another short commercial break that will be ushering us into our final half. That will be taking us up to 9. And after 9, we shall be having the Areas and News team that is led by Fete Emmanuel and Draru Masi, who will be here to also let you know what's happening. And thereafter, we shall be seeing the Northern Request Hour, the Wednesday edition, with Olivia UG, together with the Scratch Prince, that is DJ Jero, who will be playing for you music that is entirely from Northern Uganda. Thereafter, we shall be seeing the Street Talk. Before that, we shall be seeing the Lembangea, that will be fancy at midday. And after midday, we shall be having the Street Talk coming through with the man who speaks in capital letters. MC Sarge is his name, and he will be coming through with that. That will be taking us up to 2 p.m. Then Owen Zaga and Linda Susie, the sports pundits, will be coming through with the whistle time, that will be taking us up to 3. After 3, we shall be having, that is the movie time, that will be taking us up to 5 p.m. That is how we are going to be seeing the program going on after 5. That's where we shall be seeing, that is the Chuku Chuku with MC Sarge Hassan, the Big Brother, and Liz Honey coming through, also ready to have you on the Wednesday edition. And on Wednesdays, usually we talk about the WCW Women Crush Wednesdays. That means most of the music will be for the women. And today, women, when it comes to music, we see them singing a lot of love, 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 a lot of good messages coming through. And at the end of the day, that is how you will be enjoying the music that you want. And thereafter, we shall be seeing the Nilecast coming through at 7 p.m. to 8. That is with the beautiful Okumria Christine. That will be ushering us into Kelele, which is our final show of the day. And that is how our program for the day will be running. And all this is to make sure that you're catered in all aspects of life. And all this is to make sure you're not left out. And that is where I will be not leaving you out as I run for this short commercial break that will be ushering us into the final half. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned as I get back to you shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, a team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, welcome back. It's still a great pleasure having you both with us up to this hour of the morning in case you kept it locked. Right from the time we began until this hour of the morning, it's really indeed a great pleasure which we do not take for granted. I really want to say thank you, and we are back with the final minutes of the discussions, and this is where I will be letting you know what is happening still within the country, and later on I will be summarizing the entire day with what is happening internationally and in the world of sport. Because if you talk about sport today as an activity, it is no longer for leisure, but business as well, and a source of income to many people, and where today we are seeing many people already earning as sports personalities, and therefore I will be letting you know what is happening in there. But this is already one of the stories that in Chigogwa, on a sad note, we are seeing several people being confirmed dead after a fuel tanker got an accident and also already exploded in there. And several people are being also already confirmed dead, and scores reported with injuries after a fuel tanker overturned also and burst into flames at Chigogwa Town Council, that is on the road of Kampala to Bombo Road in the Kasangati Town Council in Wakiso District. And police said on the Tuesday, a multi-agency response team swiftly responded to the scene following the 3 p.m. explosion. And eyewitnesses said some of the residents died in the fire as they rushed to slowly siphon fuel from the tanker. But this is one area which in many times also really lands people in trouble. Why don't we learn from the stories that is happening or maybe happening elsewhere? Because this is not the very first time we are hearing stories of these vehicles exploding. Once these vehicles get accidents, people run with their jerry cans, they want to explode the fuel. And it's really indeed a great concern. How do we deal with all these issues? Because this is not the very first time, at least, we're confirming deaths that is coming as a result of the explosion of these fuel tankers. How do we, as Ugandans, maybe want to be told? And how do we learn from other people's experiences? I'm not blaming anybody, but it should be able to really sound as really a warning that when these vehicles get accidents, it's not actually proper. And now several buildings and cars were destroyed in the fire, and this is where we did see this happening in Wakiso. And now the National RDC, Mr. Charles Luanga, said more than 10 people died and several were injured. And according to him, the driver lost control of the fuel tanker before it overturned in there. And how is this also really a challenge? It means we need to also really resist from tendencies of wanting to get fuel once these vehicles are involved in accidents. And at the end of the day, that would be very, very much bad for us to also lose our lives from. And that is where we feel it's actually quite bad for us to also really see how we can be in position to also really deal with these issues in there. And that is one area which we feel must also really be dealt with. And on a good note, Bunyoro Kitara King has been discharged from hospital. Is another story we're seeing where the Mukama, the king of Bunyoro Kitara Kingdom, and this is also really good news for those who must be watching us in the western parts of Hoima, Bulisa, Masindi. We do understand very many people watch us from that area in there. This is actually good news for them, where the king of Mukama of Bunyoro Kitara, that is Dr. Solomon Gafabusa Rukira Basaija Agutamba Iguru the first, has been discharged also from hospital after receiving treatment from a deteriorating also health condition. And the king was therefore lifted last Thursday in a military hospital to Kampala, where he received that care at Ruby Hospital in there. Now, Mr. Fred Mugenyi Rachunya, Jokwiri, the chief prince, that is of the Bunyoro Kingdom, told journalists that the king responded well, that is to treatment, and therefore he was discharged from the facility on Monday, and currently he is in a private home in Kampala, where the doctors are closely monitoring his situation in there. And this is actually good news, that he has been discharged from hospital, and therefore we have to also continue offering him his prayers so that he also gets better. And on October 3rd of 2024, the High Court in Hoima ordered the Mukam also Guru be lifted to specialized medical treatment in India. High Commission also, and the Hoima High Court also judged that Jesse Viarhanga ruled that that the Mukama should be taken for specialized medical treatment in India or any other facility with the best resources. And that is where the ruling also followed an application filed in 2024 by the Prince Apollo Kisoro, the former also Bunyoro Kingdom Minister for Tourism and personal assistant to the King, citing the king's ill health, and in his application, Prince Kisoro sought court orders also to ensure the king received medical attention, expressing concern that those responsible solely for his care were neglecting his deteriorating health, and therefore the High Court ultimately ordered that the king should be having access to medical examination and further management when needed, and affirming to his right to health regardless of his current condition. Meanwhile, tension also really within the Bunyoro Kingdom also administration has escalated solely due to conflicts between the ruling Babito clan and the Andrew Byakutanga, the kingdom's prime minister. And on September 2nd, the Babito clan dismissed Byakutanga and appointed an interim cabinet, where also really we did see Kugonza Migadas was appointed as the speaker, and the chairperson also really was also really Consultative Council, where we did see OHT Apollo Remparo, appointed as deputy also prime minister interim also, and many other appointments also, as well as following up in that cabinet in there. And we feel at the end of the day, it is actually high time for us to be also really addressing some of those issues which are a bit small, but which play a great role in dividing the people. Because if this is not also done so in a harmonious way, then this is going to be leaving the subjects divided, and that would also really be very, very much bad in there. And this is where we are now leaving that story aside and heading to Ginger. Ginger women challenge gender norms, hire husbands as boat crew, and that is also really where we are seeing this happening, where about 23 female boat owners at Ripon landing site in Ginger City are making waves solely in the female-dominated fishing industry by hiring their husbands and paying them a daily allowance of 10,000. And these women, also previously limited to shore-based roles, such as frying also fish, have embraced their newfound empowerment, breaking free also from traditional constraints to realize their full potential. And Miss Margaret Aguti, a 35-year-old who has already purchased a boat and owned this for 3 years, also really has said she purchased the boat at 2 million and ensures that every worker operating on the land also really is having a valid also license, and she is therefore also really paying for all those also who work for her. And as her husband, Jimmy Mwere, and his aide also set off for days catch, Miss Aguti monitors operations from shore, ensuring the business runs smoothly, and this is actually the empowerment we want. If your husband is not doing well, empower them. This is the beauty of all this, and this is also really where women in other sectors should be learning from these women who are into fishing sector. If they can be able to buy boats to make sure they also support their husbands, then why must you be waiting for everything to come from our husbands? Why must you be waiting for everything to come from me as they support me? Support them. It is actually quite good. It is a 50-50 relation, and that is where your husband is not going to be idle. Buy motorcycles. If you cannot buy boats, maybe because they don't know what to buy motorcycles, let them ride it boda and bring the 10,000 to you every day, so that solely they can be able to solely work. And to the men, let's not be shy that our women are supporting us. Let's actually take this in good faith. Start solely the likes of Aguti can be able to solely be many in there, and Miss Jessica Moding, another boat owner, has employed her husband, that is Ali Mustafa, for the past 3 years, paying him an undisclosed salary plus the daily stipulated solely allowance of 10,000. And he initially also struggled with taking orders from me, but he now respects my decisions, and that is the beauty. And Mustafa Ali is actually one person whom we can't be able to solely acknowledge. And at first also I felt awkward, that is taking orders from my wife, but she is a single person and I am proud to work for her. It is actually the beauty of being together, and all this does not come out of the blue. It comes out of the understanding and the love we have in our families. If not our families, the husband may disappear with the boats, and that will also not be able to also be very well either. Now the rise of female boat ownership has brought what we call unprecedented prosperity to the families, and also contributed to the growth of the landing site, despite challenges such as patrols from the Fisheries Protection Unit and the Uganda Coast Defense Forces, which they accuse of extortion. Mr. Martin Chikakumba, who manages also the landing site, commented on the positive changes that women are undertaking. And Ripon Village S1 Chairperson Paul Sally emphasized the growing respect for women in the industry, and that is actually quite good. We want to see more women buy cars where they can be able to maybe employ their husbands to work as drivers, as these women are doing. But the challenge is we do not want to expect the men also really use this car for wooing other women. It will be very bad if your husband, if your wife buys a motorcycle or a vehicle to empower you. Please use this very, very well. Get the money and support your family, because what she is doing is to support you, and it will be well for us to also support each other. If the wife pays school fees, the husband must buy food with the 10,000 daily allowance, so that certainly nobody is also left out. And this is where it will be good. Today we know of women who buy food, but you rarely hear the story outside. You rarely hear this outside, and this is actually the beauty and what we ought to be doing. And at the end of the day, our families are going to be peaceful without necessarily having problems. And if we understand each other well, trust me, that is what we shall be getting also at the end of the day in there. And that is one thing also which I feel I should be able to leave the discussion with. And that is where we are now getting also to see other stories happening elsewhere. And this is also across borders, and this is where we feel also people still should be able to know what's happening in there. But still within Uganda, Africans accuse ICC of racial bias in choosing Konyi lawyer is another story we are seeing, where African lawyers have written a protest letter to International Criminal Court claiming they were also racially edged out of the institutional recruitment process to pick a lawyer also to defend warlord Joseph Kony. And in their protest letter dated August 26th of this year, the lawyers under their association, that is African Bar Association, claim that the ICC adopted a secret also selection process to find Kony a lawyer also to defend him in there. And this is where they did not feel well. And the lawyers also say that following an advert by the court also for candidates to represent Kony, the rebel leaders, that's a total of 72 lawyers applied, but only 3 and also are known to have also come from Kenya, Uganda, and Liberia. We also they further also claim that instead of ICC stepping up a vetting process, publishing the rules also of engagement, shortlisting the number of people selected, that did not also that was not done in there. They feel very much bad. Today, if you look at Joseph Kony, ICC actually came out to also say provisions also will be trying him in his absentia, because up to date, the warlord has not been arrested. He is said to be hiding in parts of DRC and Central Africa in there, as others only say he's in South Sudan, where nobody exactly knows where he's hiding, but the belief is he is still in the forest within Central African Republic. How can we deal with all that? And how can we make sure we bring this man to justice? Because many people lost their lives. Today we are having children who are orphans just because they lost their fathers, they lost their mothers to this warlord also as they are moving on these roads in here. And that is where we feel today when you talk about these issues of Joseph Kony, it is actually bringing pain in some people's ears and to the traders in Western sub-region. Recently we did see them also making their demands, demanding government also compensate them for the losses they incurred also during also the insurgency that did take about 20 years. And today, many of them also are claiming that they want the government also to come out and pay them, but which is not also happening. And how can we make sure that these people also get the monies that they deserve? And at the end of the day, we also want to see that people actually benefit from what they expected to also benefit from. And at the end of the day, that would also be very, very much good for them to also deal with these issues. And at the end of the day, we expect them to also get justice, because they claim others elsewhere have gotten the pay, but for them in Western sub-region, they have not been paid up to now. I'm not being sectarian, but I hope it is actually the message that these people are actually sending. And how, as government, how can we be in position to also make sure that these people of Western sub-region, who are about 1,000, get the 99 billion also they are demanding in there, because this is money they incurred as losses only during also the period also where many people died in there. And that is where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside. And as we get to move on with also other stories, we are still seeing in the international stories where women reaching for phone get stuck upside in boulders. And this is where we're also seeing a young woman spend hours trapped inside down after sleeping also between 2 boulders as she tried also to retrieve a mobile phone during the hike also in Australia. And that is one also sad story in there. Now the woman, named in reports as Matilda Campbell, was walking in the New South Wales Hunter Valley also regions earlier this month when she fell into the 3-meter crevice. And really that is one sad note in there. And as tourists, we must be careful And it was also start of a 7-hour ordeal, which would also really see emergency services and take also the challenges rescue involving also really moving also really several boulders. And even also after managing also to winch a 500-kilo rock, that also really did not also still fall also, and she was still trapped in there. And it's also really a sad challenge that she also had to be removed in there. And we hope also this does not also happen again to tourists. And we want to see people also really get the kind of also environment and the kind of also really serenity also really that will be very, very much good for them in there. And that is one area as tourists also really we should be learning from, and to make sure nothing bad happens to us. And that is where we're going to be also posing the discussions. But to summarize the day with what is happening in the world of sports, last night we had games, and really we are still counting down days. And tomorrow also we shall be seeing games happening, and this is where we shall be seeing the 4 big league returning, where we shall be having a game that is between Black Power and Kataka that will be going on in Lira. We shall be seeing Tunga Stars and Onduparaka Football Club. This is another match for the Caterpillars. And the Rua Hill Sports Club in Gulu will be taking on Kataka. Boma will be playing, that's also Karo Karunji, another interesting game that I will be following up, because Boma and Karo Karunji are indeed proving that this season also they want to do something in there. Meanwhile, Busoga will be taking on Chinda Boys. Gaddafi will be hosting Medical Calvary. Maida, after losing to Onduparaka Football Club, will be returning in action against Spider Black Angels, another West Nile side. But this time round, they will be hosting West Nile side in there. And that is where we shall be seeing Paida also really playing, also really, that's also really in the next encounters. And that means all these games also really still will be coming through to let you know of what's happening. And that is where we also do see games sometimes in the Premier League. And I really want to show you that the games also really still will be returning back. And how ready are we all for this? And all in all, I want to say the weekend is actually getting closer, and we hope also really, as the viewer, you will be in position to also really see in your way to watch some of these games that are also from the nearest places and at the comfort of also really your screens in there. For those who have the StarTimes dish, it is actually an opportunity for you to watch these games every time in there. And tonight, we shall also be seeing the StarTimes Uganda Premier League returning, where we shall be seeing a game between Soltido Bright Stars and Barara City. Maroons will be taking on AC Villa. Express will be taking on Lugazi. And we shall be seeing all these games returning. And at the end of the day, all this is to make sure that you also really get whatever is expected out of you, and to make sure that you also really get also really to see what is happening in there. And lastly, the Champions League also, the Knights did return yesterday, and Arsenal did go on to beat also really it was interesting, and I must say it was really an interesting match, as AC Milan did go on to beat Club Brugge by 3-1. AS Monaco did go on also to win their games by 5-1, beating SFK Skavena. Arsenal did edge, that is Saturday by 1-0. Aston Villa did go on to beat Bologna by 2-0. Girona went on to win their game against Slovan Bratislava, as Juventus also really was beaten by 1-0 by VfB Stuttgart. And Paris Saint-Germain had a 1-1 draw with PSV Eindhoven. Real Madrid did go on to beat that's Borussia Dortmund by 5-2 after Borussia Dortmund taking the lead by leading also really the Spanish side by 2-0 in there. But at the end of the day, we did see the results changing. And indeed, Real Madrid did prove also really that they indeed champions, and those who understand the Champions League in there, and those are some of the results I will be giving you. And that brings us to the end of the discussions. Of course, more details in what is happening in the world of sports will be coming through on the Wish Time with Owen Ezaga and Linda Suzy. Up next is the Airlines News Bulletin. That is for those who speak Lubarati, Anyale, Bamadu Lubarati, Mia Iwaro. Ela zalibwa tezo ifete manu mva mabakwer ben ni maparo asani mani amedika sawa vler sinni